Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. I am great. Um, it is summertime and the sun is shining, and this meeting is being recorded, so I have no need to talk about my, you know, crippling anxieties about everything. Good morning, Eleanor. You're muted.
Yep.
How are you?
I
We haven't spoken in so long.
know. And we have nothing to talk about.
We do have nothing to talk about, but we have referrals to talk about. So that's
right. Yes, right. Okay. Let me find my notes. And we have quite a few, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, it's not one of those avalanche days, but there's definitely some stuff to talk about. No question about it.
Yep.
We're both so punctual, putting poor Tom to shame. Did anybody get confirmation from Tom that he's joining us?
No, he asked the other day details about when it was, and I told him, but he didn't say, "Great, I'll be there."
Let me send him a quick text. Okay, something has just come up, so he's not able to join us. But guess what? We have a quorum.
How convenient.
Well, this is going to be amazing. This is going to test our track record of unanimous votes. If we lack unanimity, it's going to be a calamity this morning.
Uh-oh.
All right. Oh, actually, speaking of calamities, probably would have been the right thing for me to pull up the agenda before this began. Sorry. As I'm doing that, the May 12th meeting of the Referrals Committee is called to order. Councilmember Ravel.
Here.
I'm also here. Councilmember Sufferton. So with 2 members present, we have a quorum and are prepared to do our work. The first item on our agenda is public comment. Is there any member of the public in the Zoom seeking to give a comment? If so, use the raise your hand function, or since there's only one of you, just unmute yourself and begin giving public comment. Seeing none, we move on to the next item on our agenda, which is approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the April 26th regular meeting?
So move.
I second. So Councilmember Ravel moves approval of the April 26th meeting minutes. Mayor Biss seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none. Councilmember Ravel.
Aye.
I vote aye, and then with a vote of 2 in favor and none against, the minutes are approved. And this brings us to the actual purpose of our time here, which is the review and scheduling of referrals. By my count, we have kind of 3 different types of referrals. There is one referral, an old referral on the active referrals tab of our referral spreadsheet. In fact, I think it's row 22 of the active referrals tab that needs to be addressed. There are, I believe, 6 referrals on the new referrals form tab of our spreadsheet that need to be addressed. I think that would be rows 8 through 13. And then there are 2 other referrals that were made late enough last night that I suppose Clerk Mendoza just, had literally no work out, was just not at work at all between when they were made and now, and so was unable to add them to the spreadsheet. I don't know if we, I don't know that we have a policy about how to handle that type of situation. Allison?
I believe Clerk Mendoza needs to approve them for them to kind of come through. And so I saw those come in last night. I think they're going to have to wait for the next meeting.
I think that's the right policy. I think.
Where do we actually have that policy written down, that process written down? I don't recall.
I don't think we do. I don't think we've ever made that decision.
And why would it be necessary for the city clerk to okay them for the committee?
Oh, no. There's 2 different issues.
Oh.
There's the technology issue, which is because the referrals form is not like a password protected thing that only the council has. It's just out there in the world.
Okay.
We don't want, for reasons of spam and abuse and the like, we don't want a referral to appear on the spreadsheet when it's made. We just want a human being to look at it and make sure it's a real referral from an actual elected official before it appears in the spreadsheet. That's Clerk Mendoza's job. And I think that's the right technology solution to the problem. We've given the Zoom bombings we've seen in ward meetings. I don't think we want to have a completely.
So somebody could be pretending to be Councilmember Ravel and making a referral
that has the N word in it, for example.
Ooh.
Given what I've seen, and it's like there's been really vulgar, graphic, sexual, hateful things that have appeared in some of these Zoom bombings and ward meetings. And so to have it show up on the official city website as a referral made by Councilmember Ravel is not something we want, I think.
Okay.
So the process, just having Clerk Mendoza have to click a button after having verified, oh, this looks real, I think is a good process. The question that we're posed with in this moment is, do we want, for the purposes of transparency, we could go ahead and refer those, discuss them and refer them, but for the purpose of transparency, do we want to establish a policy that something that's not literally appeared on the spreadsheet before the meeting begins doesn't get taken up? That's the only question.
Looking at these 2 late referrals, I'm quite sure that they're legitimate.
Oh no, they're certainly legitimate. There's no question about that. And to make matters a little bit more confusing, one of them I think really kind of needs to be discussed together with line 8, right? There's 2 different reparations related referrals from the same council member, and I do think that's a little. So I guess if you're saying we should just go ahead and act on them, as long as Kelly doesn't think there's any kind of technical problem with that from a notice or Open Meetings Act or whatever standpoint, I'm comfortable going ahead if that's your preference. Kelly, do you want to weigh in on that? I'm sorry, Kelly may not be. Well, look, I think it's fine for us to go ahead in this case, but we should seek clarity going forward to make sure that we're not close to any boundaries on this. But I guess since the well, hold on, let me go to the agenda.
So should we talk about the old one first?
Well, let's just decide this and move on, since we're halfway through the conversation. Members of the committee shall review the list of referrals made to date, which includes the two last ones, but then it says available online here with a link to the spreadsheet. I think I would argue just that we wait until they've appeared. I personally don't feel that I can say with 100% confidence, oh, this is definitely kosher.
Okay.
And given that, I'm not sure why we.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So the old item is line 22 on the tracker, which is Councilmember Reed's referral to ban water shutoffs. That was made, no typo, July 20th of last year. And the reason that it's reappearing now is, Councilmember Reed had the suggestion. You may remember, if your recollection of these things is uncanny, that we talked about it, and I was directed to go back to Councilmember Reed and kind of ask him some follow-up questions about how he would, what his view is of a couple of different options. Those conversations kind of petered out. We never landed anywhere, and therefore I never came back to the committee and said, hey, let's refer this. In the meantime, now, for several meetings in a row, staff has sought to put something on the agenda dealing with water shutoffs, and I've said, well, but it's not been referred, we can't do that. So I think it's clearly time for us to refer this, and I would recommend we just refer to APW and encourage them to take it up now, because that's been both Councilmember Reed and staff's preference.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I move that we do that.
Okay. So Councilmember Bell moved that we refer the water shutoff referral line 22 of the active referrals tab of our spreadsheet to the Administration and Public Works Committee with the recommendation that they hear it at their next meeting. There be seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Councilmember Ravel.
Aye.
I vote aye, and with 2 voting in favor, none voting against, the motion passes, and that recommendation will be delivered to the chair and staff of the Administration and Public Works Committee. That brings us then to the active referrals tab of our spreadsheet. I suppose we might as well go in chronological order, beginning with line 8. So this is Councilmember Reed's referral to amend the reparations program to allow direct cash payments to recipients.
Allison has a comment.
Sorry, go ahead, Allison.
I just want to clarify. I think you misspoke. You said that we're going to move to the active referrals. We're actually going to move to the new referrals form, just for anybody following.
Sorry, thank you.
That's okay. I just want, just for people following along at home.
Yes. So I don't know how much you've talked to Councilmember Reed about this, Allison. I will say one thing about this that is slightly confusing to me is the proposal is to create a new, portion of the reparations program to allow direct cash payments. which obviously should be discussed at the reparations committee. And, you know, I think actually it's an extremely healthy discussion. I don't know if the same is true for you, Councilmember Revelle. I've been hearing all sorts of different rumors dribbling out about what the reparations committee has in mind for the next tranche of support. And I think it'd be really great for them to have a public discussion, you know, about what's next, and for the proposal that some people feel very passionately about to include cash payments in that, to be on that, you know, to be at center stage in that discussion, and you know, to go through both the programmatic and you know, legal questions around that. But then you get to column H in this entry, and it says that the budget implication is a $10 million transfer to the reparations fund, which
Right.
seems like an issue for the Budget and Finance Committee.
Right.
So we kind of have it, we're kind of confronted with a choice here.
Mhm.
Do you have thoughts, council member, about how you would prefer to handle that?
Well, I hadn't quite focused on that second part there. It seems to me that there was a lot of discussion at the very beginning about whether cash payments, whether or not to make cash payments, because I think there was the understanding that that would be taxable income. And so I think that everybody wanted to avoid that. So yeah, so the whole question would have to go back to the reparations committee and get some legal advice about, you know, what the implications for that would be. And I guess, so that part would go to the reparations committee. I mean, the idea of an actual dollar amount should go, I guess, to budget and finance. So it's a two-part referral here.
I agree with that completely. I would add that, in my opinion, the parts sequence naturally. In other words, I think the question of, do we want to do this, precedes the question of how much money do we want to spend on it. So my own inclination is send it to the reparations committee, not with the notion that they would say, okay, and we're going to do this and we need $10 million moved over to the reparations fund immediately, but rather that they really grapple with the question of where are they on this specific proposal, and then also just more generally what's next. Kelly, you switched your camera on and then off again, so sorry, I was filibustering.
No, I was just agreeing with Councilmember Revelle. When I was corporation counsel, this issue came up, and the idea of cash payments is problematic for tax reasons and other reasons as well.
Yeah, so it seems like having a whole discussion about the budget implications before actually putting the proposal, deciding if the proposal makes it to that stage doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, so I would say it should go to the reparations committee, and that would, and that's enough for now.
Yeah, and then plus the second part of the referral is basically part of the new referral that we're not going to talk about.
Correct.
So that part two can wait till we deal with the new, not yet official referral about the money now for the reparations fund.
Right, exactly. Okay, so then we have to think about timeline, and I mean, what day is it? It's the 12th. So the reparations committee met last week, and they meet in early in each month. Kelly and or Allison, do either one of you have any idea kind of how crowded their agendas are?
Budget and finance, I think, is pretty full.
And reparations?
I can't speak to reparations. I think their items have been mostly discussion.
Okay.
I mean, based on some the media report about their last meeting, I think they were talking about the idea that the ancestors are getting on in years and time is running out to provide the repair to that group. And so that's, so there is kind of the question about how, that's more of the funding part rather than the how, what type of funding it should be.
Yeah, but it ties into this in a really important way, right? Because if Councilmember Reed's proposal is that we should do cash payments, then that would say, hey, the ancestors who were not selected to be among the first 16 and are kind of waiting in line for that pre-existing program, that's one collection of people, right? They're waiting in line for the program that's not direct cash payments. Then if you were to set up a separate cash payments program, would that come first? I just think I am not aware of the Reparations Committee having made a recommendation to council at all about what's next. One thing they might recommend is go through that whole list of ancestors. One thing they might recommend is the 16 or the 16 do something totally different next. So I think all these questions are really important. People care a lot about them, obviously, for good reason. And they've got to figure out an answer that they believe in and can stand behind and support, and then persuade council to vote on before we even know who gets the next check.
Yeah, right. Well, I would think they're probably, their agenda is ready for this issue, where they're kind of circling around it already.
Right.
Probably. So I think I would move that we forward this item to the Reparations Committee and ask that it be on the agenda for their next meeting.
I second that. So Councilmember Revelle moves that row 8 of the new referrals form tab of our spreadsheet be referred to the Reparations Committee with the recommendation to be on the agenda for the next meeting. Mayor Bis seconds. There discussion? Seeing none. Councilmember Revelle.
Aye.
I vote aye, and so with 2 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries. This brings us to row 9, the amendment to allow cannabis consumption lounges in the city of Evanston. So I guess we've sort of been skipping our scoring process. I did score this one if you want to talk about that as well, Councilmember.
I did go ahead and score it. I gave it a 3 for time sensitivity, a 2 for whatever 2 is. 2 is scope, 3, a 1 for connection to existing policy, a 3 for community interest, and a 2 or a 3 for goals and priorities.
Well, I gave it a 2 for goals and priorities, so I'm going to just average ours out to 2. Yeah, I gave it something very similar. So we both had it at 11 or 12. Yeah, I don't have any idea how complicated an issue this is. I mean, obviously people would care about it, so the public part of it's complicated, but just the regulatory side, I have no clue.
Right.
Kelly?
It's not that complicated. Something we looked into before.
So it's just a thing we could do if we wanted to, basically.
Yeah, it's complicated maybe for people have feelings on it.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, but regulation is not, it's not that complicated.
Okay.
So should this go to economic development? Isn't that where we sent the hookah bars, the hookah lounge?
I think that's a good idea, but also health or human services might be another, health and human services might be the better place to take it, just because of the feelings behind it.
Yeah, we already had, I think we had a mention of it at the last human services meeting, even maybe. Anyway.
We need a committee on vice.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Councilmember Suffredin pushing for video gaming too.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, I mean, as somebody who doesn't sit in either of those committees and completely understands the argument for either one, I have no preference. Do you, Councilmember?
Well, I do think, given that the real discussion around it is going to be more of the health impact aspect, it does seem like sending it to human health and human services makes sense.
Okay, great. And how, Kelly or Allison, do you know how or wait, are you the chair right now, Councilmember?
I am no longer the chair, but there are a ton of things waiting in the wings for Human Services, because we have council members reads the rest of his packet of crime-related
Oh,
code
goodness.
amendments. We still have the noise ordinance coming back, and so I would say we could put it on the agenda, January, February, March, April, May, June. Human Services for their third quarter agenda.
So do you want to make that motion?
I move that we forward this to the Human Services Committee and ask that it be on the committee agenda during the third quarter of 2022.
I second. So Councilmember Revelle moves that row 9 of the new referrals tab be referred to Human Services with the recommendation that it appear on an agenda during the third quarter of 2022. Mayor Bis seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none. Councilmember Revelle.
Aye.
I vote aye, and with 2 voting in favor and none voting against, this motion passes and the item is duly referred. So we now have 4 items left that are all referrals. These are rows 10 through 13 of the new referrals form tab. These are all referrals from Councilmember Burns proposing very, very specific adjustments to parking, creating free parking on a particular block and imposing 2-hour limits on a different particular block and so forth. And I have to confess to just having been sort of just not being up to speed on how we ordinarily handle this kind of situation. Councilmember Revelle began to educate me about this yesterday. But I don't know if any of you wants to sort of weigh in on how these items are ordinarily handled and whether it's something we ought to do, and if so, what it is.
Well, the last time that I remember this, just because it happened in the 7th Ward, was back when we had a transportation and parking committee. And but first there were lots of months of conversation with Mike Rivera. There were neighborhood meetings. I think we did a postcard survey to basically see whether the residents did want to make this change to the parking regulations on their block. And once all of that was in place, then it came to the Transportation and Parking Committee, and they said, sounds good. And then it went on to council. So we've, of course, eliminated that committee. I would think that whole conversation with neighbors part is still very important. So I guess, the question to Councilmember Burns is does he feel confident that he's done the necessary reaching out to the neighbors for it to actually go ahead and be on the ANPW agenda? Does he say?
He says yes, right? He says, he describes stakeholder meeting in late 2021. I guess he says that for all of them.
Yeah, and presumably he's involved staff.
Yeah, he indicates that Mike Rivera has been involved.
Okay.
So I mean,
so if we forwarded it to ANPW, then Mike Rivera would prepare a memo that would outline the steps that have been taken to determine that there was neighborhood interest and support. So.
Right. So our 2 choices are just to do that, or to kind of loop back with him and ask if he's confident. I mean, the other thing that's slightly odd about this is that these engagements happened in 2021, and here we are in May.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, I could go either way. But I don't know, Allison, do you have thoughts about maybe reaching out to Councilmember Burns and or Mike for that matter, just to kind of see how how much engagement is done compared to what people are used to, and whether it's sort of ready.
I think that it's worth just referring, and then I can go ahead and do that work, and then we don't have to come back and refer it. If it's ready, they can hear it whenever, and if it's not ready, then they can push it to a later meeting.
Right, and the recommendation isn't binding, so that's fine. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Council member, do you have thoughts about what timeline we would extremely tentatively recommend?
Well, look, we're practically in the third quarter anyway. It seems like ANPW agenda is always humongous, but
Absolutely packed to the gills.
yeah, so I would say third quarter would be the soonest we'd encourage them to consider this. Does that sound about right?
It does sound about right, and it's not that long from now, as you indicate, but it's a long enough window. I mean, there's
Yeah.
6 ANPW meetings in the third quarter, and so
Yeah.
it leaves
Plenty of-
it leaves time for them to figure out the right pacing.
Right, yeah. Okay, I move that we forward this to ANPW and ask that it be on the agenda sometime in the third quarter.
All right, Councilmember Revelle moves that rows 10 through 13 of the new referrals form tab of our spreadsheet all be referred to the Administration and Public Works Committee with a recommendation that they appear on the agenda sometime during the third quarter of 2022. Mayor Biss seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Councilmember Revelle.
Aye.
I also vote aye. So 2 voting in favor, none voting against. The motion passes and the 4 items are all duly referred. And I think we have nothing else to discuss at this time. Is that right?
Yeah, right.
So our next meeting is in 2 weeks on May 26th. Kelly, you just switched your camera on. Do you have something you want to add?
I was just saying goodbye.
All right, well, thank you very much all. We ran the gauntlet of having an even number of people on the committee with no deadlocks, no bitter fights, no, we were not just staring at each other and confusion about what to do next at a single time. So congratulations. And with that, the May 12th meeting of the Referrals Committee with no further items to take up stands adjourned.
Okay, bye.
Have a good day, everybody.